Hi everyone, Clinton Day here, your music instructor, with another video about jazz. This was inspired by a friend of mine, this video teaching, and this friend of mine said, jazz, I don't get it. What is that all about? What's that all about? So after I heard that, I said, I gotta do, I gotta hopefully educate this friend of mine about jazz and why is there a question about it. So I grew up understanding it. Some people didn't grow up understanding it. So and I don't know why that is either, and that's a subject for another study, I think, in human psychology. But anyways, the basis to jazz. What is jazz? I mean, you can go to Wikipedia and type in jazz, or Google and say what is jazz, and you'll get all kind of different answers. And my basic answer is jazz is, of course, music, but it's based on improvisation. That's the main ingredient in jazz. What is improvisation? It's pretty self-explanatory. When you're improvising, you're making something up on the spot. So Mozart actually made up stuff on the spot all the time. Schubert made up stuff all the time. He had a bunch of exploratory compositions. They all did. But for the most part, the stuff that they wrote down is what we've been listening to and is still getting performed in symphony houses all over the world to this day. Beethoven, the same thing. So jazz obviously came out of Black America in right around the turn of the century. My theory is that it came from, it started with ragtime, moved on to the ragtime being composed for larger ensembles such as military bands, like that of James Reese Europe. Look him up. And then went to smaller combos, and the king of that was Louis Armstrong in the 20s with his Hot 5 and Hot 7 ensembles. But again, and then then we have free jazz and funk jazz, and of course jazz rock fusion, which is what I play primarily, and it's what I compose in primarily. But it's a fusion of rock and roll, instrumentation forms, and tonality, and improvisation. So, and again, the key word to all these versions of jazz is improvisation. So I wanted to put this video together really quickly, hopefully really quickly, and talk about a tune that I recorded in 1999 with two guys that I hired, brought them together to record some other material, and then we had some time in the studio, and I said, let's record some jazz. We're all jazz players. Let's do some jazz. And we threw the project together pretty quickly. We did it in about a half a day. We had half a day of time left in the studio. And we all know the language, we all know the code, the credo of jazz, and we all knew the tunes. And so one of those tunes that I'm going to play for you today is Autumn Leaves. And again, jazz is primarily improvised music, and it's how you improvise on that music. But the other point is it's improvised music on existing harmonic structures. In other words, existing song structures, existing chords of songs. And so we took the Autumn Leaves song, which was a popular song from the 30s or 40s. I can't remember exactly when it was composed, but it has been a tune that's been recorded literally thousands of times, and so we did one more, and that's called a jazz standard, when a tune is not your own and you reinterpret it and make a version of it that is your own. So that's what we did in 1999, myself, Dan, and Phil, and I made this record called the Clinton Day Trio. Again, Autumn Leaves is a tune that we all know. It's a structure that we all know, and we did it in a groove that we all know, swing style, and a very up-tempo swing, very fast swing. And I just said, hey, let's record Autumn Leaves, and then later on I'll put a voice track on it. I'll sing it. That'll be cool. And I did the voice track literally months after we recorded the rhythm tracks. So I wanted to play this tune for you, not just to tell you about my jazz trio recording, but I think it's a great explanation of how jazz comes together very improvisationally. Again, these three guys were together, myself, Dan, and Phil, and I said, let's just do some jazz and record it. We have time in the studio, let's do it. And so we all said, yeah, that'll be great. And we did it, and what we created was some of the music that I'm the most proud of in my career. So let me make my face a little smaller, and then so you can see the graphics over here. So some of the things I typed out really quickly are this is a typical jazz performance format. It's not the only jazz performance format. Again, there is free jazz, which is completely different, which does not utilize existing forms, existing harmony, and is not based on anything written down whatsoever. But a typical jazz performance format, if you go to see a jazz trio or jazz quartet, they're going to play tunes that have a formally written structure. They're written tunes. Autumn Leaves is a tune, and it's been performed by many players, singers, orchestral conductors, etc., arrangers. We did our own version of it, and it just came off the top of our heads, like I said, in 1999. So this is a typical jazz performance format that you might see live somewhere. It has an introduction. The introduction is just that. It introduces the tune, and it's usually 4 to 8 measures long. Measures are the counting of beats. We can talk about that in another video. And then the what we call the head is the written melody, the written part of the tune. And so the Autumn Leaves is the falling leaves rush by my window, the autumn leaves of red and gold. I see your lips, the summer kisses, the sunburned hands I used to hold. Since you went away, the days grow long, now I hear old winter song, but I miss you most of all, my darling, when autumn leaves start to fall. That's the whole tune. 8 measures of A, 8 measures of B. Actually, I think it's 16 and 16. 16 of A and 16 of B. And so the form is A, B. And then we solo over the form A, B, and those chord structures as well. So that's the head is the written part of the melody. You're going to hear me sing it. Then after that comes improvisation. What is improvisation? I wrote spontaneous creations of musical expression. Typically melodic lines. Melodic lines are single note melodies. That's a melodic line that I just improvised in my head in F minor over this tune, over a harmonic foundation. A coda, I wrote in. Coda is Italian for tail, and coda comes from the Baroque era, if not way before that. But it became into prominence when people started composing large works, and particularly Bach and Handel, etc. A coda is Italian for tail, and that just means the end. Coda. So we use it now in jazz. What are we going to use for a coda? Well, the coda is how you end a tune. So I'm going to play the tune, and then I'm going to show you graphically on this page how the tune lays out. Here is this is the cover of my CD. So here is Autumn Leaves. Intro. 4 measures. This is A1. This is the. Rush by my window, those autumn leaves. We heard the intro, and I'm doing little graphic blocks. Now we're listening to the head. Those sunburned hands you used to hold. Since you went away, the days grow long. Now I hear old winter song, but I miss you most of all. So this is coming to the end of the head. Dan is going to start an improvisation. This is all off the top of his head, playing his guitar. Over the chord structures that were created by the composer of the tune. And I'm playing a little organ in the background on keyboards that I added later as well. So Dan goes through a bunch of times through the form of the tune, and I'm going to fade out and then fade back into the end of his solo. This is the end of his solo. Now I'm going to take a solo. I am going to create melodic lines with my voice. like a trumpet. Louis Armstrong started doing this. It's called scatting. So this is my scat solo. I'm going to go through the form one time. This is the end of my solo. Now, the last head. Falling leaves rush by my window.
The autumn leaves are red and gold. I see your lips, the summer kisses, those sunburned hands I used to hold. Since you went away, the days grow long.
This is the B section.
Now I hear old winter song, but I miss you most of all, my darling.
Now we're coming to the end of the tune. Here's the coda.
When autumn leaves start to fall. When autumn
Slow down. It's also called retard. Alright, so that is, again, the basic, typical jazz performance format. Start with some sort of introduction, then you play the written part of the piece, which we call the head. And in a live performance, we can all say, we can look at each other and say, hey, let's go back to the head, which means we're going to play the head the last time. We're going to do some sort of coda. And there are lots of different ways we can end a tune. There's lots of different tricks in the jazz player's bag that to get out of a tune. There's a bunch of them. Some of them are great, some of them are not so great. So it starts off with an introduction, then the head, the written part of the tune, then improvisation. In this case, it was a guitar solo by Dan, a vocal scat solo by me, and then I came back in with the last head. Oh, the head should be here before the coda, of course. And then we ended it. The coda was play the last four measures 3 times. When autumn leaves start to fall, boom, boom. When autumn leaves start to fall. When autumn leaves start to fall. The last time we slowed it down, and then we all just kind of stopped. So I hope that helps clarify the form of the tune and what jazz is. Again, my friend has said, jazz, what is that? I don't understand it. Hopefully this will help explain that a little bit technically, and again, the layout of the form, which is the composition of a piece of music in time. And I hope that's clear. Leave your comments down below. Let me know, and appreciate you watching. Bye.